doing this episode on Egyptian king that you all know, and I think I'm gonna break all of this down again into several different episodes because I have a lot of information to cover. But once you move out of this void that I was speaking of a couple of episodes back, you move into what's called a 0 point, because there's a void. We are taught that there is about 24 hours in a day when there's not really as much time as we think it is, as I was explaining before. So what happens is that the extra leftover time, that really there is no extra leftover time, but the difference, that's a better way of putting it, the difference between the 23 hours and 56 minutes or whatever it is and then the 24 hours is converted in intervals. This is on the spiritual plane, on the metaphysical plane I should say. It's converted in intervals and turned into a form of a currency that keeps us alive for prolonged periods of time. You may call it prana or chi or something of that nature, but the bottom line is this: if you are able to live in the 23 hours and 56 minutes aspect of time and get out of the 24-hour aspect of time, you get what's called a bonus, because you'll have approximately 4 minutes or 3 to 4 minutes left over every single day of so-called extra time if you live from minute to minute or from moment to moment, because the masters teach that the minute, which comes from a kind of like a term dealing with a method of measurement, dealing with the term minute, meaning that the minute is the increment of time and the basis of time that we should use moving into the hours. So in the end of the day, if you schedule your life from hour to hour at 11 o'clock every night, no matter where you're at, you're going to have what's called an extra amount of leftover time. And this is going to turn into, like I said, a form of spiritual currency or energy that you can use, or a token that you're able to trade in once you get deep into meditation. If you ever get into a scenario where you do go through a near-death experience and you're blessed to come back, this is because you have extra chi or stored up energy. And it can happen in a sexual experience as well. So some people, they may, have sex during the hour of 11 o'clock because you have extra energy. And what happens is that, especially for you guys out there that are in relationships and are blessed to be able to have sex, you can actually reciprocate that energy and pass the energy amongst one another. And over time, this is going to turn into a spiritual credit or a form of money. And this goes into the pharaohs and why the pharaohs were so rich. See, people don't understand that though the pharaoh, and it was passed down as far as like the blood was passed down, like when you became a pharaoh, your children of course would inherit X, Y, and Z and things of that nature. But people don't realize that the initiate or the initial pharaoh for each family had to go through a ritual or a sort of Egyptian chamber in order to be able to wear the title of pharaoh. And what they don't teach you is that, see, America, which is where I'm at now, and Africa used to be connected. And from what my research and studies, the Gulf of Mexico as well as the Mississippi River connected to the Nile River and ran through. The Nile River at one point was connected to the Mississippi River. I'm pointing this out for a reason, because as of right now, I'm in a state that's called Kentucky, when in actuality, according to my research, and one of my teachers taught that this actually was called Tutankhamun, or Kentucky eventually, or King Tucky, or King Tut. And I'm pointing this out because here on this same land you have gold, lots of gold. I won't discuss where because these are our secrets, And I won't go into why or any of that because it's well protected. But I'm pointing this out because this gold and all of these precious metals that manifested over time were because of the initiates breaking out of the locks in the ADAP chamber, going through these initiations that I spoke of on these other episodes prior to this episode, going through all of these initiations so that they could eventually achieve the optimal currency, or this currency that can not only be used on a physical level and traded in for what's called credit, past life credit. Oh yeah, could be traded in certain realms and in certain markets for credit, but could also be used on the spiritual realm to prolong life. So what I'm going to get into on the next episode is that I'm going to begin to discuss alchemy in relationship to land and how gold is actually formed. Like this came out of the ground at one point. And at one point it was a liquid and it had to harden up. It had to go through a process. And people don't realize that this was actually planted by the pharaohs. This gold didn't randomly appear. We can create gold. Many of you have heard of monoatomic gold. It's going into a powdered process of gold, when in actuality there's a liquid gold as well. And I'm going to go into all of that. There's a company called Organo Gold. They make a coffee. See, all of this is trying to tell you a story. These are metaphysicians and people that come up with these different companies and things like that because they study alchemy in the Egyptians, and they don't realize that metaphysicians and the Egyptians were these pharaohs. When they came out of the chambers, the last point I'm gonna make, they were billionaires, man. They were the equivalent of billionaires after they came out of this initiation. And this isn't to excite the greed in you at all. This is not to excite the greed in you at all, no. This is just to let you know that you do have something waiting on you on the other side as far as commodities and gifts, but it's up to you to learn the mysteries, to go to these different sacred sites and meditate. So what I'm finna do today is I'm finna connect and make us a sort of a Belzoni's chamber and try to manifest a certain goal that I have. And once I manifest this goal that I have, I'm going to come back up and share my results with you guys. So the bottom line is that to master this lock, or once you master this lock, you will move into and you will inherit what's called a spiritual credit or past life credit. You will have knowledge about your past life that will be tradable, I promise you, for any money or anything that you want. But the question is, will you really want these things once you figure out exactly who you were in a past life and exactly what your mission is? See, the goal in life is to figure out what your mission is, like what your assignment is, or what you signed up on the other side to do. Some people didn't sign up to become rich. Some people didn't sign up to try to, get married. You have to figure out what you signed up for, because that's where your wealth comes in at. That's where your abundance comes in at. Your abundance that will not come in chasing greed and money. I just want to point that out. However, once you do your mission, you're going to be rich. It's a lot of money in it, of course, because you're doing your life mission and purpose. But the goal is to figure out what is your life mission and purpose and to connect it with your past life credit. So you may have been a barber in a past life. I'm just using that for an example. And you may be stuck in something you don't know what to do. That's why you need to figure out what your past life is, and you can go back into barbering and master it, and you'll probably become very wealthy. You may have been a writer in a past life. You need to go back into writing and figure out what you missed out on so that you could become a wealthy poet or writer. But you will never achieve any of this until you master the code that's put on your DNA, which is a lock. And you learn the code and you crack the combination and you unlock yourself from the spell and find out where your gold is, where your past life credit is, where your abundance is. So I'm going to come back up with more. As always, stay vigilant. And don't let anyone, I'm going to point this out, don't let anybody make you feel bad if you do find out that your past life is to achieve as much wealth as possible. See, the pharaohs had to achieve wealth to solve the problem of time here on this planet. See, money solves the problem. Time is money. And money solves the problem here of time on this planet. That's what I'm basically breaking down. It's only money that will get you to the higher realms. You say, what money? We can't take that with us. Money is numbers. You achieve a certain amount of numbers, that count stays with you in your Akashic records. You take that with you to the other side. So I want you to remember that. I'm gonna go ahead and shut down this video. As always, stay vigilant, wise, and keep working. Have a great day.